Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. Lots to share with you. Are religious freedoms under attack in the military? And what's the latest on those HHS mandate lawsuits in the United States? Tom Lynch of the Thomas More Law Center joins us to talk about what he describes as a legal battle for religious liberty. And later, are you looking for Mr. and Mrs. Right, or Mrs. Right, I should ask? David and TRISH NEVAREZ were as well, until they found each other online. The purveyors of CatholicSingles.com join us to talk about the widening acceptance of online dating and how it could lead to stronger, more successful marriages. And finally, Father Jack Lombardi is a Maryland priest leading a 100-mile walk to raise awareness about the threat of religious freedom here in the U.S., and he's here to tell us what you can do to join him. As always, I want you to be part of the program. If you have a question about online dating or if you want to share your experience, tweet me at Raymond Arroyo, or you can drop us an email at worldover@EWTN.com. We will get to your questions later in the program. But first, here's the brief news from the world over this week. In private remarks with Latin American church leaders, Pope Francis confirmed that a gay lobby was at work at the Vatican. The statement was an apparent reference to Italian media allegations of corruption and blackmail within the Curia. It is the first acknowledgement of a so-called gay lobby by any Vatican official. The Latin American and Caribbean Confederation of Religious published a summary of the Pope's remarks during their meeting last week. In it, Pope Francis is quoted as saying, "In the Curia, there are holy people, but there is also a current of corruption. The gay lobby is mentioned, and it is true. It is there. We need to see what we can do." End quote. In the days leading up to Pope Benedict's February resignation, Italian media speculated that a gay lobby was influencing Vatican decision-making and policy through blackmail. The unsourced reports claimed that the scandal was detailed in the secret dossier prepared for Benedict by 3 trusted cardinals who investigated the leaks of papal documents last year. At the time, the Vatican denounced the reports as defamatory and unverifiable, unverified or completely false. This time around, spokesman Father Federico Lombardi did not offer a denial, saying only that the audience between Pope Francis and the church leaders was private, and as such, he had no comment. And Pope Francis is calling for more religious freedom around the world. In remarks during a Saturday meeting with Italian President Giorgio Napolitano, the Pope rued that religious freedom is more often affirmed than put into practice. It is often threatened and not infrequently violated. He said that serious outrages against this fundamental right are a source of concern, and these problems need to be confronted at the global level. And the largest pro-life rally in the history of Ireland took place this past Saturday. An estimated 40,000 people packed the streets of central Dublin for the Vigil for Life, protesting the government's push to loosen the country's ban on abortion. Prime Minister Enda Kenny hopes to have a vote before Ireland's Parliament adjourns in July. The issue has split his party. However, Kenny said this week he would not allow a free vote for Fine Gael members. A free vote allows members of his party to vote against the party line without risk of retribution. The government has yet to submit the legislation for a vote. Early drafts would legalize abortion in cases where it is determined that the mother's life is in danger, which includes the threat of suicide. And on Tuesday, the United States Senate moved its immigration reform bill over a procedural hurdle. The legislation is now being debated by the full Senate. At its core, the bill sets out a 13-year path to citizenship for the 11 million or more immigrants who arrived in the United States illegally through the end of 2011. They would have to pay fines and back taxes. The bill also calls for tighter border security to prevent future illegal immigration, but does not make that security a prerequisite to the extension of legal status. The GOP is seeking tougher border security via amendment. Their first attempt was rejected by the Democrat majority and the Republican members of the Gang of Eight on Thursday. Iowa Senator Charles Grassley offered an amendment that would have required the U.S.-Mexican border to be secure for 6 months before any undocumented immigrant in the U.S. could obtain legal status. And the Obama administration has dropped its opposition to a court ruling that ordered unrestricted access to the emergency contraceptive Plan B. The morning after pill, which can prevent implantation of an embryo, will now be available without a prescription to children of any age. In 2009, the administration made Plan B available to 17-year-olds without a prescription. Then, in 2011, they overruled the Food and Drug Administration recommendation that the drug be made available to anyone of any age. At the time, President Obama said he opposed the wider availability of the abortifacient as the father of 2 daughters. And Sarah Murnahan, the 10-year-old girl whose fight to become eligible for an adult lung transplant made national headlines, she has successfully received a double lung transplant at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. Her case spurred public debate over federal health care regulations after Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius refused to waive a rule that a child must be at least 12 years old in order to receive an adult lung transplant. A federal judge overruled Sebelius. Little Sarah, who was suffering end-stage cystic fibrosis, will need at least a few weeks of recovery and rehabilitation in the hospital. The 1-year survival rate for lung transplant recipients is 80 to 90%. Our prayers continue for Sarah and for her recovery. And finally, I guess you'd call it Hog Heaven. On Wednesday, Pope Francis performed the blessing of the motorbikes for thousands of Harley-Davidson owners who gathered at St. Peter's Square. The Holy Father blessed 1,400 motorcycles in all as the Harley-Davidson Motor Company is celebrating its 110th anniversary with a European tour. Harley VP Mark Hans Riker presented the Pope with a commemorative black leather biker's jacket, a painting of a Harley in St. Peter's, the square that is, and 2 brand new gleaming classic motorcycles. 500,000 Harley enthusiasts are expected in Rome this weekend for the big anniversary celebration. Many of them will return to St. Peter's Square on Sunday for the Pope's Angelus address. Thousands of motorcycle enthusiasts are expected to attend. No word if the Holy Father will ditch the Pope-mobile for the Pope's cycle. Well, you got nuns on a bus, why not a Pope on a cycle, you know? Before we go, a special mention of the folks suffering from the most devastating wildfires in the history of the state of Colorado. Thousands have been forced to evacuate, and hundreds of homes have burned in the path of those fires. Our prayers and thoughts are with all of you suffering and searching for a new home in the days ahead. I know what that's like. God bless you all. When we return, is religious liberty being curtailed in the military? And where do the lawsuits stand over the HHS mandate set to affect businesses this August? Tom Lynch of the Thomas More Law Center will share his insights when The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. The issue of religious liberty has emerged as a major issue over the last few years. This new awareness is due primarily to the Obama administration's HHS mandate, which will require faith-based organizations to provide contraception, sterilization, and abortifacient drugs to their employees, with few exceptions. On Capitol Hill, an amendment to a major defense appropriation seeks to protect the religious freedom of those who serve in the military. Is it needed? And are religious liberties being undermined in the military? Joining us in studio is Tom Lynch. He's the Director of Mission and Development for the Thomas More Law Center, a law firm specializing in religious liberty cases. He's also an Army veteran. Tom, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk for a moment about this case. You all represented Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Dooley. He's a war vet, served honorably in Iraq. He was teaching at the Joint Forces Staff College. There was an elective on radical Islam he was teaching. What happened?
Well, he was teaching on perspectives on radical Islam. The course had been around for 6 years. He actually went through the course and was asked to instruct it.
Right.
It was an elective. This is not for privates. This is for colonels, captains, senior ranking officials. What happened was 57 Muslim organizations sent a letter to the Pentagon, as you know, FBI, to get rid of anything that might be offensive to Islam. There was a letter sent from the Department of Defense to the university, which was responded in December of 2011 that they vetted all their courses and they were good to go. Then what happened was someone that wasn't even in the elective decided to write directly to the Department of Defense and complain that this was offensive to Muslims. After that, they started a preliminary investigation, and then in April of 2012, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dempsey, went on a press conference along with the Department of Defense secretary and said that this was totally unobjectable, this is not what we teach, and basically got Lieutenant Colonel Dooley fired. Now here's a guy.
He was in line to be a combat commander.
He was on the list for command. He had a great career. He was actually the general's aide to the post commander at Fort Hood when the shooting happened, and he was on his way to a bright career. And his goal, attending West Point, a graduate in 1994, was to be a battalion commander.
So you all represented him. He lost the case. There was a panel of three commanders. They exonerated him and said he was fine, correct? Well, it was overruled.
We are still using the administrative processes within the military. He went to a corrections board that was comprised of 3 generals and 2 colonels. They recommended to retain him on that board. It went to the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army at the time, General Austin, and in a one-line sentence said, remove him from the list. So we are still in the military process, seeing if we can get his career fixed, and if not, we are looking at a federal
And the
lawsuit.
Thomas More Law Center sees this as a case of religious infringement on religious liberty, or is this just political correctness?
Well, this is about national security, and one of our mission statements is to protect our national security. General Peter Pace, who was then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in 2005, he said, listen to what your enemies tell you. So we believe that Islam has been telling us, Muslims have been telling us for a long time. We can see what's happened in Europe, and in any Muslim country, Christians and Jews are persecuted. So this course should have been, think out of the box, do your own research. And what happened was he got fired because the Muslims said they were offended. So this is about, number 1, academic freedom. Number 2, non-attribution to an instructor. This is a university that's funded by Congress, and we've asked the Middle States Accreditation to look and see if that was violated. So this is about letting us look at perspectives on Islam and what if cases in case these senior officers need to advise the president or any other senior leader.
I want to broaden this conversation a little bit. There was a Religious Liberty Amendment added to the National Defense Appropriation Act last week in the House. The Armed Services Committee, House Armed Services Committee attached this. The Obama administration has objected to the inclusion of that Religious Liberty Amendment, which basically says the religious speech and activities of those in the military must be respected. Is that really needed? You have a Constitution already, Tom.
Well, we agree with that. I mean, if you look back to what George Washington said in his farewell address, that religion and morality are indispensable supports of our nation. And John Adams said that our Constitution was made not only for a moral and religious people, it's wholly inadequate for a government of any other. So we believe that, you know, the Constitution says that, you know, there is nothing that says separation of church and state in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights. And we believe that the Constitution says there isn't one religion for our country, but let people practice the way they feel. And it seems like Christians are being persecuted across the board, and why is that? We've been in touch with Archbishop Bruglio, Archbishop of the military, along with Ron Cruz, who represents 2,200 Protestant chaplains, and we're prepared where any chaplain that has gets in trouble or has their career stopped or feels that something is being impinged, we're ready to fight for them. And
there are several cases that have come to light in recent days. The Air Force censored a video created by a chaplain because the word God appeared in it. A service member received a severe and possibly career-ending reprimand for expressing his faith's religious position about homosexuality on a personal religious blog. Another chaplain was relieved of his command of a military chapel because consistent with DOMA's definition of marriage, he could not allow same-sex weddings to take place in the chapel. Well, is this a concern?
It's an absolute concern. And Richard Thompson, our founder and president, like I said, we have talked to the chaplains, and we are ready and willing to step in to help these soldiers that, number one, fight for our country, but two, have a religious belief that shouldn't be trampled on when it comes to a man and a woman in marriage.
Now, you see, this is where these rights start to rub up against each other in uncomfortable ways at times. Members of the gay community, they're saying, if you accept this religious liberty amendment for the military, that it is a free pass to harass gays in military service. You would say what?
Well, I would say that we've had the Don't Ask, Don't Tell repealed. I would say that, you know, when that happened, commanders told their troops that they were not going to receive any benefits because of the Defense of Marriage Act. Now the former Secretary of Defense says, you know, the Defense of Marriage Act does not apply, so therefore they can get joint domicile, they can get medical benefits. We disagree. So I think that, you know, if the amendment is going to make sure this happens, you know, that's something we'll have to see. But right now, there is persecution of Christians that is seen in the military, and you just referred to a couple of those cases.
Let's shift gears, talk about the HHS mandate. You were representing a number of clients. We often hear about the churches being infringed upon with this HHS requirement. Businesses, private businesses with deeply held religious convictions are often pushed to the margins. You don't hear anything about those cases, except for Hobby Lobby. There's been a virtual blackout. Tell us about, you all are representing the Nagel brothers, who run a plastics company in Michigan. Tell us about that case. Why did they come forward, and where does the case stand now?
Well, they came forward. It's 4 brothers. 3 are practicing Catholics, and 1 is a devout Baptist. They bought the company from their father, and they believe it's an infringement on their religious freedom. They don't believe that abortifacients, contraception, or volunteer sterilization is something that fits in with their Christian beliefs. Therefore, they don't feel that they should have to pay for this. So they came to us. They were our 6th lawsuit on the HHS mandate. So right now, the way it works is as a company has their insurance renewed, depending on what happened in the calendar year, so we're looking to get a temporary restraining order so that they won't have to provide it to their companies without having to pay the $2,000 an employee fine and other fines.
What is that a year? $4 million or something, I read?
It's close to that, correct.
Yeah. This is, people don't realize this is coming up in August, very soon.
Correct. So,
and,
you know, there's over 60 cases with several firms around the country. I think, you know, what you're going to see is as there's decisions made at the district court level and they move their way up to the circuit courts, that eventually the Supreme Court is going to have to, you know, look at this as, and I just want to preface that I am not an attorney. So
didn't I introduce you as the director of development? Let's talk about Eden Foods. Eden Foods is another company. This is one of the oldest natural food companies in the U.S.
Correct.
You're representing them as well. What's their complaint?
Well, their complaint, again, the owner, the company was founded in 1960. They've been recognized as one of the best food companies in the world. Again, he is a devout Catholic and feels that anything, you know, before, during, or after sexual intercourse, that there should not be anything that would impinge a fertilization. So that's why he filed suit, because he doesn't want to pay for abortifacient.
Where are these cases right now, these 60-plus cases now? They seem to be at something of a stalemate. The EWTN case was tossed out by the judge. They said there's no, you know, there's no bloodletting yet. The regulation hasn't kicked in. We need to see the pain and suffering first, is essentially what the judge said. And that seems to be a pattern in some of these cases.
Well, and that, again, depending on the judge, depending on the district court you're in. So And that's where it'll make its way up to the Supreme Court, in my opinion, because you have different rulings in different areas of the country. So someone's going to have to step up to the plate. And the more cases that come about, the quicker it's going to get to the Supreme Court.
Very good. Tom Lynch, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Raymond.
All righty. For more information on the good work of the Thomas More Law Center, visit their website at thomasmore.org. When we return, how strong and successful are relationships that begin online? Recent studies say very. David and Trish Nevarez are the operators of CatholicSingles.com. They'll update us on the growing popularity of online dating and the pitfalls you should avoid. Get those questions in. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. A recent study indicates that more than 1/3 of marriages in America start online. With the advent of the internet and social networking, it was only a matter of time before the new media began to influence courtship. But how successful are relationships born online, and how likely are they to last? What about singles looking for a spouse with a shared faith? Here to speak about their own experience and to take your questions are the purveyors of CatholicSingles.com, David and Trish Nevarez. David and Trish, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start with this report, this study we've seen, where these marriages that start online or relationships that start online are more likely to end in marriage. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because you go through such a process of discovery with the other person through correspondence, and the profiles nowadays are very, they'll cover just about every aspect of your potential relationship. And I think the one thing that most people look for, at least they say they do, are common interests. And with us, I mean, being Catholic, our faith is at the top of that list. But it's just blossomed. I mean, I read a study like you did that 1 in 3 marriages now start online.
Yeah.
So, you know, it goes that it's going to be very popular, and it's part of the culture now.
Yeah. But my question is this, and Tricia, maybe you can help us with this. This is after my time. I don't know what a profile is. I don't know about any of that. Though it appears there are a lot of married men running around on some of these sites, which we'll talk about in a minute. I've gotten emails about this. But my question is, it seems to me such a foreign thing to post a profile of yourself and then kind of wait for people. What happens? Do they ping you and then you respond and you can decide whether to accept or respond to their
Yeah, in my personal case,
overture?
David was actually the first person I even ever talked to or dated from an online dating site.
Wow.
This was kind of one-stop shopping for me. I was
you
very lucky.
You went right to the CEO. Not a bad, not a bad
and I had no
place
clue.
to go.
But for me, and when I was a woman in her 40s, I had a friend who had a very successful marriage going on 10 years that met on a Catholic website, and great couple, and just one night got a little quiet and said, let's see what this is about. And I put my profile up, and you got to understand, it wasn't an intention of, I want to find my husband. It was, maybe it'd be nice to meet somebody new who shares your faith, first of all, and that maybe it's a friendship. Sometimes this is for dating, but it's also for fellowship. And you might meet somebody and, maybe David and I struck up a friendship, and maybe we didn't get married, but he, knew somebody who wanted to introduce me to. But, I think you get a little more intimate because you do a profile. And, you, and I did it, and David didn't, nobody wrote me. But I saw a little icon that said, see who's looked at your profile, and I saw that David looked at it. And, we just had so many interests, and I waited a few days, and I wrote back and said, look, I don't know if I'm ready to date, but maybe let's a new friend, and that's kind of how it started.
Amazing. If you have a question about online dating, or if you have your own horror story or joyous story, email us at worldover@EWTN.com or call the number there on your screen. David, one of the things I've been seeing since we announced that you all were coming on, a number of people have written in and they're saying, look, there are predators seeking easy targets on some of these sites. There are married men, there are sex offenders. Do you all screen for that sort of thing on CatholicSingles.com?
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be any foolproof solution for some of this, obviously, as there wouldn't be if you met somebody at a dance or a bar or whatever. But yeah, we do some preliminary screening. The safest thing, though, really is the person that you're going to meet if you strike up a relationship with someone is to just use common sense, meet somebody in a public place. If you're uncomfortable for whatever reason, don't bother. You know, I mean, you can move on. There's no shame in doing that, and also tell a friend where you're going to be, and kind of take it one day at a time. Don't rush things, and you know, things progress in their own natural order, I think.
What gave you the impetus to start this in 1997?
Well, I was Catholic and single.
Oh, that's a good reason to
start. A little
start.
light bulb went off, and I thought, hey, this is a good idea. And I got online and realized nobody was doing this yet, and it just became something. I think I was more interested in the internet at that time than a lot of people I knew. And coming out of college, the dating pool really dwindled a bit. And I think that's a common theme we see with our members. And that's usually where we get people is in their late 20s, early 30s. And from there, it just grew, you know.
A number of people have written in, and they are writing in, talking about how we met online. I met my husband in 2001. I met my wife in 2003.
Yeah.
How common is this? And there's got to be, I mean, I know some people, in fact, one of the makeup gals who I'm friends with, she regularly relates the difficulties she's had trying to find somebody through one of these online sites. What distinguishes Catholic Singles from some of the other online sites?
Well,
I mean,
think,
aside from Catholicity.
Yeah, what drew me to it, I think, well, also, there is that fellowship of it. We also have a great girl, Michelle Fleming, who does an advice column that really talks also about the things that you're just talking about, the safety issues and factors, and people will write in and ask her questions, and we have Father Jim's blog on it, and you know, we have a blog forum so people can kind of interact who might not even be.
I think it's the comfort level, knowing that the faith is really the most important thing, and they're searching, and that's part of what we do. You know, that's really, I think, what draws in most of our members.
It's a big shift, though. I mean, I have to tell you, I cannot imagine. Just personally, I can't imagine this. I thank God I met my wife, you know, in the 90s before everybody was online, and you know, and I auditioned my wife, which I heartily recommend. Get them in the second callback. That's the best way to audition all the wives. No, I was directing a play. She came in. I brought her back for callbacks, and I married her. You know, that's so auditioning is good. But
so she got the part, I guess.
She got the part. You bet she got the part. She's waiting for it to close, I think, at times, but she got the part.
Open-ended run.
It's been extended. That's right. Here's the question, though. When you meet someone face to face, there's chemistry. There is verbal and emotional cues that you pick up in that person, or you don't pick up. Isn't there something lost when I read of people dating online for 6 months or a year without ever seeing each other? This is odd.
That's not what the site is for. More introductions too. David and I first we talked on the phone 3 days later. We met 5 days later, and you talk about safety factors. If somebody is not wanting to meet you, and we live 2 hours away, so tell your audience if somebody doesn't want to meet you and always has an excuse for coffee or this or that, and they're dragging you on for weeks and weeks, that's warning sign number one.
Yeah, but you know, having a long relationship develop over the email or whatever correspondence we're using online is good initially, but you do have to meet, and you're right, you have to have that chemistry in person, and that's going to follow. If it's somebody that's interesting that you want to meet, you're going to have coffee or whatever, and you're going to learn if that's something that's, there's a connection there.
One of our correspondents here, they were asking, what would be your advice? One woman says she's been here for several years. She's been on and off these websites. How do you verify that the information, particularly if someone's telling you they're Catholic and they're on a Catholic site, how do you verify that before you make the meeting?
Yeah, I would just ask questions. I mean, you can tell usually if somebody's being honest and truthful. Like I said, we do some screening, but it's really up to the communication that you have back and forth with that person. You know, if you want to know if they're Catholic, maybe you make a date and you meet for church.
I love this.
Yeah,
This is a great, Jan, I won't give the last name. Jan went to a website, She made contact with someone who said he was single in the military. She wanted to get his Skype account so that they could communicate. Turns out when I Googled his name, he's married, a high-profile officer, and his wife had the same Facebook pictures on her account that he shared with me. What a disappointment. So scary that I wasn't communicating with, that I was either communicating with a liar or someone who stole someone else's identity.
Yeah.
But she did what I did. I Googled. Don't you think I didn't Google David's name and find out a little more about him?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, absolutely. If you meet somebody in a bar, if you meet somebody at just a restaurant or a theater event, they can tell you the exact same thing that they can tell you online. You know what? One thing David did, which was good, and I think I did, we introduced our friends to each other very quickly.
Yeah.
When you meet somebody's friends or you meet somebody's family, that's a way to verify that they are who they say they are. If somebody is
Yeah, not necessarily the
life
first date.
No,
but, you know.
no. But if somebody's, with anybody you date, if somebody's trying to keep their life a secret and never introduce you or be in the company, they might be hiding something. So kudos to Jan.
I'm amazed at some of the, and people are writing in, we have some seniors writing in and saying, you know, look, I haven't dated in 40 years. You know, I've never married. What would be your advice to these people who have been out of the game for a long time?
Pretty much the same across the board. You know, take your time, develop your profile, and when someone writes you or you decide to write them, you know, make that first step count and let it develop naturally. If it's somebody that's got some common interests and you find them, you know, attractive by their picture or just by their personality, you know, let's see what happens. Maybe have coffee, meet with them. But we do have a lot of folks. We've got members between 25 and 80 years old that use the site. And the last statistic I read was that there's 50 million people who are single, and 40 of them have tried online dating. So, you know, people are doing it.
And seniors, be careful. You know, maybe invite them to a group event. Maybe bring your friends the first time. Even anybody, but that's okay. Hey, bring, you know.
You get a chaperone. There's no harm.
Nothing wrong with a chaperone.
No, not at all. Absolutely.
Nothing wrong at all. I told my friends where I was going.
What?
They know we're here right now.
That's right. What else? What are you hearing? What other stories are you hearing? I noticed on your site you have a bunch of success stories.
Right.
What's the most common way people meet online? Is it the faith that brings them together? Is it common interest? What is the glue that first draws them? I mean, I have to, again, this is so foreign to me. I just,
it was to me too.
Well, yeah, you just missed the cutoff, I guess, 20 years ago.
You see it.
You know what it is? It really is. I mean, in our particular case, the faith is important. But as a whole, people are really interested in personalities and interests, and there's always been the theory that if you have a common interest, you're going to get along somehow. You know, people say, well, go do go bowling or meet somebody at a hike or whatever. Those help, but I think that the faith as a foundation is really what kind of takes it to the next level. And you know, so far we've had some great success stories. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Well, some people tell me, friends of mine who've attempted this and are still online dating, they say, you know, this is, in some ways, you're looking at a resume. And it's the rundown of that person, and you sort of decide whether you want to set up an interview or not. And it's an efficient way to kind of screen people and push aside those who you probably don't have a connection with or won't. Tell me how the faith figures into this and why you wanted to create something called Catholic Singles. Why was that important, the Catholic dimension?
Well, you know, oddly enough, religious sites in general are the fastest growing segment in online dating, from what I read recently. And that
makes sense.
That was my biggest concern. You know, being someone who grew up going to Catholic grade school, high school, and I was in my Newman Club, Cal State Fullerton, and you know, it was a part of my life, every aspect of it, and I wanted it to be a part of my marriage. So when I decided to date, I wanted to make that one of the most important things that I looked for. So this, you know, really kind of helps narrow the field down. And again, like I said, there wasn't really anybody addressing this at the time, so I just kind of went with it, and you know.
Here's an email. I am the father of two, it did work out. I am the father of two wonderful young women who complain frequently of the lack of availability of practicing Catholic men. They seem to be a vanishing breed. As a parent, how would I suggest the use of your service? There is resistance to the idea.
Well, you can't, you know, lead a horse to water, as they say, and they have to come about on their own terms. But you know, you can present it in such a way that you give them the idea, you let the seed, get planted, and if in their own time they want to try it, that's great. But that is a common problem. You look for people that may say they're Catholic, or you're not sure, but you really want somebody who's practicing Catholic. You have to go out of your way to find them. I mean, that's part of the process.
And it's quality, not quantity too. You have to cast your net wide. We live 2 hours apart. So many people want convenience. I mean, society is all about convenience. I knew someone in New York, a friend, and didn't want to go outside a 10-mile radius. I'm like, this is your life. This is your future. I'm not saying that they have to be 3,000 miles away, but if you're serious about it, and you may want to take a 2-hour drive to meet somebody. So
I'm going to ask each of you this. What was your dating life like before this online adventure?
You go first.
Well,
you founded the site, so you were you're like the Johnny Bravo of the dating world. I know. Go ahead.
Well, okay, that's something to live up to, I guess. Johnny Bravo. Well, in college I dated, and as soon as I got out, like I said, the dating pool just dwindles. Being involved with a Catholic club and a lot of Catholic friends from high school and stuff, I saw them starting to get married, and I didn't date as much after college. It just became a lot more difficult. And the impetus for the site was that I got online just to see what was happening. And I found a Christian site that everybody was basically Protestant. There were very little, if any, Catholics on there. And again, being that was one of my main goals, I felt like, this is something we needed to do.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your dating life like? Keep it clean.
I will. I didn't date very clean. I was not a serial dater. I had one boyfriend for a number of years, and really my only one, what I consider a serious boyfriend, and he had passed away from cancer. And it was about almost 2 years, and I didn't date anybody, and that's why I went to a Catholic site. And I put that in my profile. I even said, I just had a moment one night, maybe I'm not ready to date, or is this my life, So anyway, I put maybe a new friend, and I was very upfront about that with David. He was the first person I even sat in a car with since my boyfriend had passed away, and so.
Yeah, and it makes sense, as you think about it, and as I've thought about it this week, it makes a lot of sense that you have faith is the thing that really holds a marriage together.
Right.
If you don't share your core beliefs, you're not going to make it through the tough moments of a marriage. You're just not going to make it. So it does make sense that people would want others who share their faith, and that would be the pool from which or through which they'd like to find their mate.
Yeah, I mean, that's a practical reason right there. I mean, there's so many couples that I know that are great, they're doing well, but there are a lot of them that have, marriages that a lot of conflict because the religion is an issue.
Yeah.
So you get that out of the way, and hopefully it's smooth sailing.
Yeah, one of my producers, James Faulkner, he met his wife online. He traveled long distance from California to Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
Talk about searching hard for a wife. They're married. They're expecting their 5th baby in January.
Wow,
so
congratulations.
So there are a lot of stories.
Congrats.
We're getting others that come in.
I love
Here's a Catherine writes, I met my husband online at a Catholic at the Catholic Singles website. I was discouraged with meeting men who claimed to be Catholic and weren't practicing. When I read his profile, I actually turned to my mom and said, he's the one. I emailed him, we talked, and within 2 weeks we met for dinner. The rest is history. We're celebrating our 4th wedding anniversary this month.
I love it.
Well,
so it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
It happens.
Yeah.
Now, I have another producer who is single, a serial single person. What would be your recommendation to him? He's going to kill me. I'm not mentioning your name. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, how old is he, first of all?
Yes.
Can we say that?
In his
Range.
early 40s.
Okay.
Hey,
You
nothing
know,
wrong with that.
I was 46 when I got married.
And I was
yeah.
46.
Oh, there's hope.
Yeah.
We're 2 days
So
apart.
Don't let that discourage you. You never know when you're going to find the right one. I mean, like, there's Catholics all over the place, and to find the right one may take a little time. And serial dating, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to interview as many people as possible, get to know who they are. But if your faith and is driving that, one of these days I think you'll find the right person.
We have a caller, Fran from Pennsylvania. Sorry, I'm having trouble. Go ahead. What's your question?
I have a success story to tell you about CatholicSingles.com.
Okay.
A friend of mine, Barbara, had 2 young children, and went on CatholicSingles.com and started talking online with Mike. And then they started talking on the telephone and getting to know each other. And, of course, Mike wanted to meet Barbara and take her out to dinner. And she was very hesitant. She enjoyed talking to him on the phone, but she was very hesitant. He told her, you can call my pastor, and he will tell you that I'm in good standing in the church. She did that. She called the pastor. He gave Mike a wonderful reference. Mike happened to have 8 children, 2 in college, 2 in high school, 2 in elementary school, and 2 toddlers. He was a widow. His wife had passed away. They married, and now they have the 8 children together, and they're very happy thanks to CatholicSingles.com.
Wow, what a great story.
Yeah, well,
great story. I'm sure you hear those every day.
Yeah, and when the families, especially when there's children involved, I mean, that just is sort of icing on the cake for us to hear that kind of thing. So it's great.
That's amazing. So I guess there was 10 children altogether. Mike had 8, and then
My
she had 2.
My earpiece isn't working.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll translate for you.
Okay, thank you.
It's like mine.
Okay.
Buzzing and his thing. Now you see what I go through all the time.
I didn't want you to think I wasn't
No. Do you have
engaged.
a video component here on the site where people can engage, where they can see each other and talk? Or do they have to go to Skype or something else?
No. Most of the time, people just communicate via email, and eventually it progresses to telephone calls and that kind of thing. We don't do direct video.
Oh, you don't have people mounting videos on their profile?
No, we've found there's so much technical issues with those sometimes that, and it's. But we're having a webinar very soon. I think it's the 26th. We're going to have it on the site where we'll have one of our contributors do a webinar for people who have questions. Anybody's welcome to register for the site, and the webinar's free. I believe it's going to be Sunday, the 26th. Yeah.
One quick story before we go. This is from Andy. I've been very happy about online dating. Soon after meeting a girl on one of the online sites, I began the process of RCIA. I had no religion growing up. And have truly found a home in Catholicism. I know God used the dating site to bring me and this girl together, and used her to bring me to Him. I know, and 3 years later, we are newlyweds. We had just had our 1-month anniversary. A lot of good can come from these sites. So
love hearing that.
That fellowship's a big part of it too. That's a big component of our site.
Very interesting.
We want to bring everybody in, and whether they're looking to strengthen their faith or get married soon, that's something that being on the site and learning and reigniting the faith.
Well, I'm sorry I won't be joining you there on Catholic Singles, but if you start Catholic Retired, I'll sign up immediately. CatholicRetired.com. Don't try to do it because I'm saving it on GoDaddy myself.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you both. You can find out more about CatholicSingles.com by visiting the website, CatholicSingles.com. David, Trish, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
When we return, how far would you walk for religious freedom? Father Jack Lombardi has a very specific number in mind, and he'll tell you. He'll be here to share his Religious Freedom Walk 2013 when The World Over Live continues. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Joining me now is the pastor of St. Peter's Catholic Church in Hancock, Maryland. He wanted to draw attention to the upcoming Fortnight for Freedom convened by the U.S. bishops. So he's initiated something called Religious Freedom Walk 2013. To tell us more is Father Jack Lombardi and one of his marchers, Paul Huffer. Thank you both for being here.
You're welcome.
Father, tell me, why did you start this? And what is this Religious Freedom Walk?
Well, last year we started it and we walked to Baltimore. This year we are walking to Washington.
Okay.
The Basilica, the shrine at Catholic University. For everybody, we're walking for Catholics, Christians, non-believers, secular people, to have their civil rights, their religious freedoms, if that's the case, to protect their health insurance and say that we love our country, we love our government system, and we love our freedoms. And we want to protect those and protect our faith.
And what's been the reaction? I know you've got a big group marching with you from churches all over, what, 40, 10 churches?
Yeah, sure. positive, tremendous. We're staying at a church in Barnesville up the road, and they've welcomed their arms. I met somebody out on the streets coming here tonight, a judge that's going to be sworn in. They're supporting us. All kinds of people are supportive. We see people on the road honk their horns, and farmers, city people, and they're very positive.
Wow. Now,
yes.
Paul, you're a young guy. How did you get involved in this, and why are you marching?
I actually got involved in this through different, in my Catholic church, you know, they had different flyers, and I usually just getting involved with in my diocese and trying to, you know, show what I stand for is that.
Good. Tell me about the spiritual dimension of this, Father.
Well, Raymond, we have Mass every day. We pray the rosary. Sometimes we finish it on the road. Sometimes the trucks are going by so fast we can't say them. We have holy hours at night. People fall asleep during those sometimes. I won't mention any names. But anyway,
don't do that.
Yeah. But it's great. We have youth, mostly youth, and a bunch of chaperones. They're great. They're positive. They're taking a week of their time out of their summer vacation, not going to the beach, and they're giving a week of their life for you,
this
for
is
all of us.
This is a 100-mile walk.
Yes.
This is not a walk around the neighborhood.
Right.
It's a 100-mile walk, and you're contending with a lot of weather.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because there was a tornado here today.
Well, people have iPhones now, and they can tell the weather in Wyoming. So I have a track phone. I can't do that. So we have lots of coordinators to plan it, and they've been great. We have people in Pennsylvania and watching the weather. We started after this morning. There were storms. Got 6 miles in today, and then another storm came up. We ran a little while, and then we got the rain. So we'll get 15 miles tomorrow. Okay,
so did they pick you up to bring you here?
Yes.
So you're off the road
for a little
bit.
We didn't walk here.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. And we're doing penance, praise, and prayer for the Lord and for our country and for everybody and for our religious freedom. We're glad to do it.
And what do you want the ultimate reaction to be? What do you want people to think after seeing this? We want to rescind the HHS mandate that requires companies to have health insurance that contains contraception, abortifacient, sterilization, so that especially Catholics, but everybody that doesn't want it, that react to that, that they don't have to have that, and that we have our religious freedom or civil rights protected. Are you hoping that others will copy this example? I mean, one of the critiques I keep hearing from pastors as well as faithful about the Fortnight for Freedom is it is so neuralgic and undefined that people can't get their arms around it. They don't know what to do.
We want people to pray the rosary, fast, go to adoration, Mass, do penance, but we also have to get together. We're a team. We started with 40 walkers, and we kept saying that when the bus goes by, the trucks, we have to work together as a team to stay safe. We did it last year, 100 miles, no injuries. It's a kind of miracle, but we are very safe and prudent, so we have to work together. And we work together stronger as a nation, a country, a Catholic church when we're united to tell our president we love the government here, we love our freedoms, we would like you to change respectfully and protect our religious freedoms.
Very good.
Yes.
Father Paul, thanks for being here, and we wish you the best. I hope you don't get any more tornadoes.
Yes. Well, we could use some snow every once in a while to keep cool.
Oh yeah, well, it's a little late for the snow, but you got to move this walk to November or December, maybe then. Thank you, Father. You can find out more about the Religious Freedom Walk 2013, which ends Sunday, June 16th, here in D.C. at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception by visiting religiousfreedomwalk2013.blogspot.com. Before we go, a special message to our viewers in the United Kingdom. I'll be visiting London next week, you've been warned. On June 20th, I'll be speaking at the Most Precious Blood Catholic Church near London Bridge at 6:30 p.m. So I want all our UK viewers on June 20th at 6:30 to come to Most Precious Blood Church, which is located on O'Meara Street between Southwark and Union Streets. All the details are posted on RaymondArroyo.com. We'll have a jolly time. Well, that is all the time we have now. The show continues on Facebook and Twitter. As always, the Twitter and Facebook pages are linked on the left-hand side of the site. Be sure to sign up for my weekly e-blasts at RaymondArroyo.com. And a very happy Father's Day to all of our dads out there, especially mine. In the meantime, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. Bye now.